Hello everyone! Welcome to my webinar. My name is Benjamin Mizrahi, and in the next half hour or so, we are going to learn how to help your child become better with their executive functions and grow independent and confident student. Now, this webinar is for parents who wish to solve the problem of low grades, procrastination, and overall underperformance of their children, both in school and at home. So as I said, in the next half hour, you're going to understand why your child is underperforming in school and home. Just a hint, they're not lazy. Also, a different perspective on your child's low performance. Next, what's going to happen is that you're going to learn about ways to help your child overcome procrastination, confusion, and stress over schoolwork, and how you can help your child become confident and independent student. Now, I'm going to show you a step-by-step strategy to become independent and confident student. But before we do that, a few house rules. First, you should know that this is not a quick fix, what I'm going to show you. Also, it requires commitment and responsibility. When I say responsibility, I mean that you and your child needs to take responsibility on their work, which means that if something doesn't go as they expect, they need to go back, check the strategy, and try to improve their way of doing it, their execution. Okay? And lastly, your child must believe in progress and change. Otherwise, it just will not work. Okay, so before we begin, just let me do a quick check-in with you. All right? Does it sound like you? Do you spend your evenings reminding or arguing with your child about homework? Does your child complain that school is too boring or difficult? They just hate it? Does your child forget to do their homework? Do you sometimes wonder why your child cannot start a task on time? Do you find yourself losing your patience on those weeknights after work, after you come back from work and you really would just want to relax? But yet again, every day there is this battle with homework and your child is like, acting with attitude and opposition. Do you sometimes wish that your child would be more mature and not need you as much? Do you sometimes go to bed worried and exhausted? Do you really tried all the options yet not getting the results that you wished for? And finally, do you sometimes feel that your child always needs someone to push him or her? If you've answered to one or more of these questions, you should know that the real problem is that you haven't made the shifts. Now, what am I talking about? So there are 5 key shifts that you will need to make in order to help your child grow confident and independent student. And I'm going to explain all of those 5 shifts for you in this session. When you will learn these shifts and make those shifts, your child will be able to complete their homework without your reminders. You will not have to be on the lookout for tutors or contacting parents if they have the missed work that your child forgot in school. You will not have to be as involved with your child's schoolwork. Your child will stop spending long hours with ineffective study methods, and grades will start to rise. You will have more time for yourself and your family. And best of all, the interaction at home will turn from a mundane interaction around homework, frustrated interaction, right? Did you do your homework? When is the next test? Or why did you get such a low grade? This interaction will start change. It will become more meaningful. You will find that you have more time to spend meaningful time with them. Instead of chasing them to do the homework, maybe you'll find yourself reading a book with them, having a meaningful conversation, playing chess or something like that during the week. It doesn't have to be the weekend. You will no longer see your child as incapable, lazy, underperforming, or ungrateful, or even indifferent about schoolwork. All right, so before we start with the 5 shifts, let me quickly introduce myself. Again, my name is Benjamin Mizrahi. I'm a former middle school learning specialist, right now a high school learning specialist. I'm a certified ADHD, ADD life coach. I'm a doctoral student in learning sciences. I have 2 masters in education, one from Teachers College at Columbia University. I'm a specialized instructor of executive functions and designing study strategies for diverse learners, and I've been successfully coaching students and parents for more than 15 years. Okay, so let's begin. Shift number 1, rethink homework. What do I mean by that? Instead of waiting for your child to tell you that he or she has homework, there's going to be a consistent amount of daily practice. And in fact, we're not going to call it homework anymore. We're going to call it a review or something else, but not homework. You should know that homework, you probably know already that homework is really one of the main reasons why you do not enjoy a peaceful evening with the family on a regular weeknights. In a survey on parenting among 300 parents, the overwhelming majority agreed that homework causes more arguing and unhappiness in their homes than anything else. The battle over homework breaks a lot of parents and creates much tension between them and their children. And this battle usually takes place during the weeknights between 5 and 8 o'clock in the evening. I'm very specific about the time because this is the time when you come back home after work or after your day, and all you want is just to have a peaceful evening, relaxing and have meaningful time with your kids, and instead it's like a war zone, right? So we come to think that homework is some kind of like the 11th plague. But the truth is that homework is one of the learning exercises that helps students build important skills and habits, such as reflection, organization, and even diligence. And homework or independent work requires a lot of executive functions. And that is the problem, my friends. Homework or independent work requires a lot of executive function skills. What do I mean by that? Executive function skills? Yes. I want to talk to you about what are executive functions. You have probably heard about this phrase from my group on Facebook, or you've read about it. You know a little bit. You've interaction. You've had some interaction with it. Working with kids, if you are an educator yourself, you should know that the prefrontal cortex, which means that really that part of the brain, is in charge of certain capacities that help us set goals and achieve them, and even manage ourselves on a day-to-day basis. And we start developing these capacities at the age of 2, and it continues onward throughout our entire life. At the beginning, not long ago, researchers thought that we really develop these skills during the school years, meaning from preschool through high school and a little bit college. But nowadays, with the idea of neuroplasticity, that we can continue develop our brain till the age of 90, basically, right? It really depends on our effort and commitment. Even the executive functions are also, these capacities of the brain can also be developed, not at the pace that we might expect, but definitely can be developed to some level. So what are these capacities that I'm talking about? First and foremost, I refer to executive functions in 2 different groups. One, task management skills, okay? Skills that we use to complete tasks. So time management, organization, planning, prioritizing, and self-monitoring skills. Just the ability to take a bird eye on yourself and ask, am I doing well? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what am I supposed to do? Or how well am I doing? So self-awareness. There is another umbrella skills within executive functions that I refer to as the self-management, not the task management, but self-management skills. And self-management skills relate to emotional control, impulse control, flexible thinking, and also focus and attention. You should know that even though I refer to them as task management and self-management, they overlap. All of them overlap. So for example, if you are doing homework, you do need the impulse control. You need to have emotional control. You need to be organized and know how to plan your work. So you need a lot of these executive functions. The thing is that during the school years, we tend to think that our kids are capable of completing certain tasks because they are in, for example, like 10th grade. Oh, you're 10th grade. By your age, I was doing this and that. The truth is that kids, everyone, right, develops his or her executive functions in different capacities, in different ways, and also through different experiences and in different levels. So even though we have this chronological, biological age, right, we say, okay, 10th grade, you're 16, 17, etc., there is this developmental age that we need to be aware of. So the developmental age. And we can have two kids in 5th grade, and one would be at the developmental age that is higher than 5th grade and will be capable of executing tasks in a much better way than the other one. The other student who's developmentally speaking is in level of even 4th grade and 3rd grade. Now, when we refer to kids who are diagnosed, people who are diagnosed with ADHD, we're basically saying that their executive functioning are much lower in terms of their development. So you have those who have very low self-control, impulse control, or emotional control, or they have, at the same time even, they have very hard thinking flexibly, or being organized. So we're talking about a lot of deficiencies within these capacities. And that's why it's very hard for those with ADHD or ADD to manage themselves without help. Most of the time is coaching therapy, and also sometimes it's also with medication. But that's for another time. For now, we want to focus on the fact that homework requires a lot of executive functions, and when we don't have that, when our children don't have it, the students don't have it developed well, they are going to find different ways to evade or to push away, ignore the task. And that's where we see procrastination, that's where we see lack of interest, that's where we see a lot of frustration and anger. These are all symptoms of the executive functions that are not developed, and the kids need help. Now, many of us gladly serve them with different kinds of help. I'm going to talk about the most efficient help that you can serve your child with. So bear with me. Now, back to homework. When done right, guys, homework is a key component of your child's growth as a confident and independent learner. Let me really just show you the one shift that you need to make in order to achieve this. So over the years as a learning specialist, I have created the home review routine. And again, we're not calling it homework anymore, but we're calling it the home review routine, which takes place 6 times a week, okay, on 6 days a week, so 1 day off, but they don't do homework, they don't do anything. All right, and then there is the same amount of time that they dedicate for the work, and it's called the H2O. That's how I call the routine, the H2O, because it's a routine that is made of 3 parts. The first part, and that's the main part, is really the homework. So H, homework. 2 stands for review. They're gonna, after doing their homework, after completing and submitting their homework, your child will choose one topic to review for the day, and they're going to apply different study strategies to strengthen their understanding, and maybe prepare for tests in advance, or other things like that, or follow up with the teacher in regard to questions that they have. They need to review, go back and develop this skill of diligence, going back and being really increasing their efforts in learning and making progress toward achieving better grades and becoming more independent. And the third part of the routine, which doesn't take place every day of those 6 days, usually from my experience it really takes up to twice a week. It's organization. Your child will go through his or her folders, binders, pencil case, backpacks, anything that is related to their school, and they will organize it, and also in a certain way that I teach students. So the H2O. For example, if your child has just started high school and is in 9th grade. 9th grade means that the home review routine, the H2O routine, will be every day, 6 days a week for 90 minutes at a time. You multiply the grade of your child by 10. So 10 minutes. So we'll have 90 minutes at those in each of those 6 days a week. Now, many kids, students are not used to sit down or work. Doesn't mean you have to sit down, obviously. They're not used to commit to that amount of time. But the truth is that, if your child is way below that, 90 minutes in high school, then you can start with 50 minutes. He or she can start with 50 minutes, 45 minutes, and then increase it up to 90 minutes. The benefit, the main advantage of keeping it the same time is that they can predict the amount of time. They know exactly how it's going to take, how long it's going to take them. And on the nights before tests, they will not need more than 90 minutes because they have been used to, they have habituated themselves to reviewing and learning, and the material is pretty much fresh in their mind. So, and they're really on top of their work. So they don't have to start from scratch to go all the way back. Everything is pretty much fresh in their mind. And that is one of the main advantage of the H2 routine. Also based on the feedback I got from my students and clients. Now, it does take an open mindset and commitment. Don't get me wrong. But depending on you, if your child is completing the daily routine consistently, the amount of time will stay the same all year long. It will stay the same. And again, if on the nights before tests, same. On the night before big project, same. So if your child is in 9th grade, it will be 90 minutes. Now, do not expect the beginning to be smooth, but if done right and consistently, your child should start feeling the difference after just 1 week. Also, it is important to let your child choose what she or he will review, what subject they will review. So for example, they can choose Monday math, Tuesday science, etc. But it could be Monday foreign language. It doesn't matter. They need to choose it, okay? All right. Now, I want to share with you a case study of a student of mine in 6th grade, former student, Jeremy. Jeremy was in 6th grade when his parents reached out to me. After skipping homework multiple times, the teachers started contacting his parents. Jeremy's parents had to give him constant reminders and even consequences after lying to them about his homework. We started working together on establishing a daily practice in math. Under my guidance, Jeremy learned to design a daily practice regardless of his homework. It was really strange for Jeremy at the beginning to sit down and work even when he did not get homework from his teacher. And that's going to happen with your child too. But knowing that it will only be for 18 minutes and really engaged him to try. Now, that time we started with 18 minutes and then we increased it so to up to 60 minutes. But because Jeremy was putting 0 time, so we started with 18 minutes and then we increased it. And after just a few weeks, Jeremy's test scores increased by more than 30%. That's a lot. And homework was not an issue anymore. So we're not talking about homework anymore. Review the H2O 6 times a week, same amount of time. All right, now shift number 2. Rethink the way your child reviews for tests or big projects or papers or big assignments. Now, repetition is worthless if not done in a certain way. Schools teach students a lot of valuable information, but they rarely teach them how to study. Studies on high school students in the US and Europe show that when it comes to studying for tests, high school students do not know how to review the material effectively. I cannot tell you how many of my students, brilliant students, they're just low achievers. And every time I try to find out what's the cause, what's the root of it, they tell me, Mr. Mizrahi, I just don't know what to do when I'm alone, need to study, and no one is holding my hand, helping me. So I realized that this is really pervasive. It's not limited to one specific age, nor specific division. It's not just in middle school or high school. It's really even in college. Students really want to succeed. As their efforts bear fruits, they get motivated to continue like adults. But really, when reviewing is usually not done right, that's what usually happens, right? They don't get the results, they don't get the grades, and they become very frustrated. So they try over and over, but they get the same results. And many of them start to develop self-defeating beliefs and even anxiety toward the subject and in general. Why? Because they think, okay, I have tried. I put the time, it doesn't work. I have tried again. I put even more time, it doesn't work. There's something wrong with me, and there is something wrong with the teacher. And this is another way how students start procrastinating, avoiding, and feel very badly about themselves as students or against their school or just learning in general. Now, I want to share with you a study strategy that has been proven successful in many different circles and age groups. And the study strategy is called the study cycle. And this idea was shared by researchers who wrote very interesting books about learning. Learning that helps students not just understand but also retain the information. Make learning stick, that's the name of the book. And it's very interesting. What they share there is that students should study and then assess themselves through an effortful assessment, meaning that they really need to make it like an exam, like a test, so no notes, nothing around them, assess what they really know, and then if they know the topic very well or that part of the topic, they move on to the next part of the topic. But if they don't, what they need to do is change their strategy and study again that topic. So if your child is have the habit of just reviewing the material, the notes before the test, and they took the test and it doesn't work, it means that they need to change the strategy. The strategy is not effective. But what happened to many students is that they work very hard, they study for a long amount of time, right, at home before the test, even a few days before, great planning, they break down the material, etc. But they never assess themselves the second part. So they don't really know how much they know until the day of the test. And there are also those who a little bit, check their understanding. They go online. If it's math, they do some exercises. But for the second group, if it doesn't work for them, they think that they just need to study harder. And the truth is that if you study harder, just trying the same thing that doesn't work leads to more frustration. So this is also not helpful, to try harder of the same strategy. You keep doing the same thing that you do, but in a different way. That's all. So that's something that could really, really help your child in reviewing the material. Now I want to share with you a quick example of my former students who is really a quite intelligent girl. She was just like very low performer because she did not have the skills of learning independently. She didn't know what to do. And this letter I got from her father when I left the school, when I moved out of state. And this is what he said. Dear Mr. Mizrahi, I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your hard work and dedication in teaching my daughter. From when you started with her in 5th grade, she has matured into an incredible math student, and we owe that all to you. But I know that it is not only about math per se. You have taught her how to be organized, diligent, and dedicated as a student. She also learned from you how to use the tools needed to be successful in any subject. We are really going to miss you and had wished you could teach my other 3 daughters. So this is a father of one of my students who really noticed that his daughter learned how to study and became much more independent and successful. Okay, shift number 3, rethink learning. So we did reviewing, right? That was the second shift. Now rethink learning through a multisensory approach. Now, multisensory approach is usually associated with things like Montessori or learning math, but the truth is that it's much more simple than that. You don't have to bring so many learning manipulatives at home, and it does not mean that you have to be concrete all the time, to use different objects. No, multisensory is even much more simple. Now, you should know that there is nothing more frustrating than to learn something only to forget it a few minutes later. I'm sure it has happened to you many times, because it did to me, right? Many students forget what they learned by the time they arrive home from school. You ask them, what did you learn today? You get a blank answer, like nothing. You get a look. Don't ask me that again. Students who keep forgetting what they have learned eventually start doubting their capability as learners. Anyway, I will forget it, like this learned helplessness. And things get even worse when they start believing in it. I'm just not good in math, or I'm actually a math person. I'm not a language, so I'm bad at like writing essays, etc. So all of these self-doubting comments are making the experience even less and less successful. And of course, it's not helpful to be so pessimistic about your capabilities, because then you start you believe less and less in change. However, students who get to learn by using a multisensory approach grow more successful and confident as they get to process, understand, and retain the information much better than using one or two senses. What am I talking about? So I want you to think about seeing, touching, listening, and speaking. These four ways of learning, okay? Seeing, touching, listening, and speaking. In most classrooms, teachers usually focus their instruction I'm talking about like high school, end of middle school, high school, and college, mostly on auditory, which means that the lecturer, the professor talks, right? He speaks, and the students usually listen. So it's only auditory. Nowadays they involve visual aids, so you have a lot of different visual aids which are helpful, but not to everyone, right? Not to everyone. So it's very important that they have it. Not everyone involves visual aids, but those who do, it's very helpful. But the learning is rarely involving movement or talking, where the students can talk on a regular basis, not just through a presentation, like really a lot, and also in an intentional way. So it's usually the teacher who talks and the students need to listen. And the touching or doing or moving is more reserved to the lower school, beginning of middle school. And the idea here is that the more senses integrated in your child's learning, the better the comprehension and retention. And when the problem is that when they get back home, they only learn through one or two ways, but that's it. They don't listen to a lecture, or they don't record themselves summarizing the notes and then listening to it again. No, they do the same thing that their teacher does. They read, right? So they don't even speak it. They try to read it, and that's it. But that's basically it. Or they do practice, right? If it's math, but that's all usually. So I wanted you to think about the old way and the new way of learning. So the old way is really through a single processing, or maximum two senses, involving two senses, right? In the old way, most students forget what they learned by the end of class, or after a few hours and after a day. If there is a long weekend, forget about it. That's very hard if they don't review at home. And limited understanding is limited, and as well as memorization, right, is limited. And over time, they develop defeating thoughts about competence, about their ability to succeed, to grow in those areas. The new way, the multisensory way, calls for involving more senses. That we're talking about things that you can move your hand with. Okay, so that's touching. Things that you can see, tutorial videos, documentaries, pictures, diagrams, flow charts, things like that. Speaking, of course, and listening. Now, the more senses of these, the more categories that you involve, the higher the retention rate, and the deeper the understanding. Also, there going to be more sense of control over learning. Your child will feel much more confident, and with the idea that even if sometimes the task is difficult, they can do it. They build up this confidence so that when their task is challenging, they will do it. So this is about the multisensory and the new way, and you can see again, speaking and listening go together, touching and seeing go together. And you want your child to engage in at least two of them at a time. So speaking and listening go together. So if they want to focus on that, if your child is very verbal and they want to focus on that, it's not just about speaking, but also speaking and listening. Okay, so they can record themselves and listen, or listen to audiobooks, etc. But the speaking must take place. And also the other group is touching and seeing. So as I said before, touching is moving the hand, drawing, and doing things that, creating table charts, etc. Handwriting things, and not typing. And then seeing, okay, visual aids, flow charts, etc. Videos, tutorials, documentaries. All these are really great. All right. So I had this boy who really struggled in math, and I started giving him multisensory lessons, and the change was tremendous. And not just in his knowledge, because math really relates a lot about a lot to their sense of efficacy and their ability to learn math. It's about like their how they perceive themselves as students. And with this student I'm going to read about, I felt that there was a major change, a major improvement. Mr. Mizrahi's multisensory instructional approach has helped my son improve his math skills by remembering and understanding what he learns. My son struggled in math for so long. Mr. Mizrahi's method worked like a charm. We immediately saw the change. My son is now very confident about his capabilities in math, and he is much more resourceful than before. So this is about the rethinking learning and how we should do it at home. If it doesn't happen in class, it should take place at home. Now let's do a quick recap before we continue. So far we spoke about homework as a crucial part in building essential learning skills, but only if done in the right way. Now think about a daily practice that would work for your child. The H2O is one example. Reviewing can leave students anxious and in despair if they don't stop to assess their understanding and change their learning strategy as necessary. And finally, if we want learning to stick, we must incorporate more than just one or two senses in our learning experience. Now, the next shift is rethinking support. Please avoid the one-on-one tutoring, and I'm speaking as a former tutor. One-on-one tutoring does not aim to equip your child with tools that will make them independent learner. The primary goal of tutoring, you should know, that is to get homework done for the day and maybe get a better score on the upcoming test. This is wonderful, right? But what about the future? Do you want to hire a tutor every year and you want to see your child growing with a tutor every year? And when will your child learn to be independent? How do you plan to win them off it? Just not hire a tutor? They're going to get used to it. And you should know that prestigious high schools are now starting to restrict tutoring services for their students. More college students than ever are applying for testing accommodations and other learning services, not because they have learning disabilities, but because they are not independent and they get anxious when they need to do things alone. With one-on-one tutoring is simply a cross-your-fingers strategy. You go on to it and just hope that your child will pick on those skills as she grows up. But the problem is that students become too comfortable with having someone hold their hand when learning. And students don't know how to be resourceful and take charge of their own learning. And with continuous support at home, students start putting less efforts in class because they simply know that they will review it with their tutor. However, this is not to cast doubt on tutoring. Tutoring support has its benefit, but it does not nearly come close to helping students become confident and independent learners. As I said, it helps students cover the issue of homework when the when the tutor is there. If the tutor is not there, chances that the student will not do their homework, or if they will do it in a much sloppy way. They don't learn how to do it by themselves. I want to read to you a case study by one of my students, former students, who grew up to be independent by 10th grade. It was a big change for me to see my daughter, Sarah, switching from one-on-one tutoring to study in a group. We saw how she grew independent when it comes to studying. Up until Sarah started working with Mr. Mizrahi, doing homework was a very stressful time of our day. She did not know where to start from, and she was really getting anxious about her homework. We are very happy to see that Sarah is now more resourceful and confident as she's entering 10th grade. All right, we are approaching the last shift. The fifth shift is rethinking your role, parents. Yes, this one is for you. If you feel overwhelmed and exhausted, it is probably not because of your child's behavior or misbehavior, but more due to a lack of knowledge, guidance, and support in pedagogy on how children construct learning. When parents dedicate their time, energy, and resources without a guidance by an expert, they often fail and give up, just like those students who we discussed earlier. You do not want to waste your time experimenting with tools and techniques that you read online. Instead, you need to hire someone who knows the solution, has been doing it for a while, and with results. It's like if you had to cross a minefield, would you do it alone? Or instead, would you get someone who has crossed it dozens of times safely. At the end of the day, you need to remember that change will happen no matter what. But progress is reserved for those who work toward it and with the right guidance. That is, with an expert. I want to share with you a quick testimonial by Talia. Talia is an executive director of a large organization in the East Coast. She has reached out to me back in January of 2020 about her son. As a single parent, Talia had major difficulties with him at home. I have been reading a lot about parenting and even worked with a therapist, but it was only until I started working with Mr. Mizrahi that I saw a major change in my life as a single parent. Talia was willing to invest her time and resources, and the reward was a total transformation. All right, everyone. So today, I promised you that you will be able to understand why your child is underperforming in school and at home. And also, I promised you a different perspective on your child's low performance. Remember the part on executive functions and the difference between developmental age and chronological age. I also promised you ways to help your child overcome procrastination, confusion and stress over schoolwork, and how you can help your child become confident and independent learner. Now, what do you need to win? So first, focus on a daily practice with consistency. Number 2, follow the study cycle with varied repetition. Number 3, review while involving at least 2 of the 4 senses that I've spoken about: the touching, seeing, listening, and speaking. And number 4 is to avoid the one-on-one tutoring because it creates dependency and lack of resourcefulness. Finally, you need to hire an expert if you want to see a lasting change. All right, now guys, you have a choice. What am I talking about? You can keep going on your life, the same old routine, coming back home, struggling with your child or with your children about their homework, seeing them switching from one tutor to another, not developing the skills that will help them become confident and independent, moving from middle school to high school with tutors, with your help, with the anxiety, with the stress onto college, see them growing by age but not in skills. You can keep continuing spending those precious years of their childhood struggling and really feeling so weak and lacking the energy to do creative and fun things with your family because you are exhausting yourself on a daily basis and seeing homework as the 11th plague. Or you can choose a different path. The path of hiring someone where I can come and help you with my team, because I've set aside in the next 24 hours to speak to you personally about your child and how you can apply these ideas to his or her routine. And we can do it today. Whatever your biggest challenges are, we have seen it and we know how to overcome it. Now, if you choose to do that, we will have on this session, we will work with you on 3 main things. Number 1, we will identify the primary obstacles you are having with your child about school. Number 2, we will help you to find the ways that you can begin addressing those issues immediately. And number 3, we will help you lay out what your child needs in order to help him or her become a confident and independent student while earning higher grades. And the cost is absolutely free. Now, should you decide to join our training on executive functions and how to become independent and confident students, and this program is specifically for students who are currently underperforming and they feel that they can do better, they can feel better about themselves and they want to do better. And this training is really for students who are ready to step up and put the efforts and take responsibility. They are committed already. They need to want that. So your motivation is not enough. You need your child's motivation. So should you decide that your child is ready, is ready to join our program, then we can continue to talk about that program as well. But if not, that's okay too. So for now, what you need to do It's just to go on this link, www.mrmizrahi.info/apply, and sign up for schedule your appointment. I repeat, www.mrmizrahi.info/apply to sign up and schedule a meeting with me, Benjamin Mizrahi, where we can really lay out the difficulties, understand what we can do, where your child is, and equip you with tools to help them become confident and independent, and then see if this is a good fit. And if it's not, that's okay too. Thank you very much. Good luck. I look forward to hearing from you.